There's a company in Japan that's been dumping their toxic waste into the sea. The people need help. We need global attention. We need you.
I'm the greatest photographer that Life magazine has ever had.
But you are. You're the single most impossible photographer that Life has ever had.
Listen to me, I need the pictures, Gene.
Bring the story home.
The cover-up is gonna be as much of a story as the story itself.
この人は一人で来たの?
You cannot let your emotions run the show. Go home.
人類最後の戦争にしようじゃありませんか!
My first question, I guess, is you do a lot of different stuff, and film directing. This is only your second feature film that you've directed. So, why is that, and why did you choose these two films, especially this one, Minamata?
Sure, Minamata.
Minamata. Sorry.
No worries. Well, I've produced quite a few films as well.
Yes.
And I've also directed probably another 35 or so features, but they are not features, but other films, more experimental kind of films. I mean, I'm just always working and
Right.
always creating in that space. I mean, my sculptural work and my work as a fine artist and some films have been more public facing than others. This one, it just happened to land in exactly a sweet spot for me, which was the ability to tell a story that hopefully could empower and inform and be nutritious,
Right.
And inspire, but also one that could be poetic and attractive and beautiful and offer a very unique look at something that we don't often look at. One of the special things about Eugene Smith's work in particular, and this is by no means a biopic. This is
Right.
a film about a group of people in Japan who rose up and who spoke truth to power and as a community were able to to come together and find their voice and get their message across and get it across globally. But you had the opportunity through this, singular visionary in Eugene Smith, who could see the very best in humanity in some of the darkest moments of humanity, and had that unique ability. And there's something so beautiful and hopeful and positive about that. And also, of course, he took gorgeous images and the kind of images that were quite difficult to look at, but ones that you leaned forward into to look at, and you didn't turn away. And so having that lens or those eyeballs to see this world from was quite unique. And then, of course, when you get it felt like this was the sort of story that the world needed at this time.
Yeah.
And so when you get someone like Johnny Depp to kind of come and play, and someone who's at that level that can attract millions and millions of eyeballs around the world, you have a chance to do something special and just a unique connection of things. And so this story became a public facing film that I will have made.
Right. So the events that are depicted happened in 1971, and there's been a book written by whatever. But how did you come across the story, and what made you think that this needed to be made into a film?
Sure. So I've been a fan of Eugene Smith's since as long as I can remember, and I had seen this work and a lot of his work over the years as I was growing up and coming of age as an artist and just looking for we all do this, looking for things that inspire you. And actually the thing that I was just saying is something that felt singular to me. He could show you the dark and the light in a single image. He could show you just the worst things that people do in war and just that people do to each other. but also show the very best of the humans, of humanity, and show that hopefulness and that love. And that's something that always stayed with me and something that I'd hope to replicate in different parts of my work. And of course, I knew the sort of primary images of this essay, of the Minamata essay that Gene had done for Life and then the book. And I'd seen all the work, but I didn't really know the story of the human beings. And then at some point a few years ago, Johnny and I connected, and then we started looking at the story itself, and realized the incredible courage that these people had shown. And it felt at the time, it was only a few years ago, and it's more so the case now, that the world was going in the wrong direction and people were losing hope everywhere. And it just felt for the first time, and certainly in my lifetime, the world seemed to be going backwards. We'd made all these gains in so many ways, and suddenly we were going backwards a few years ago. And it just felt time to remind people of what can happen and what has happened. People are so fast or quick to forget the past, unfortunately.
Right. Well, because the topic that you're dealing with is kind of corporate pollution of the ocean. These days, everybody's talking about climate change. Down here in New Zealand and in the area, we're concerned about saving the fish and making sure there's enough for us.
But it's all the same issue.
Exactly.
And the problem is that what has happened over the last 50 years is that there has been a concerted effort globally by all special interests to separate all of these issues and turn them into little micro localized issues where people fight over one little issue and that's their focus. The fact is, it's all the same issue, which is that all of us are getting, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but we're all getting effed over. Okay. We're all getting fucked over. Regular citizens around the world are getting fucked over. We're not all standing together because we have to fight the issue that's happening in our backyard. We have to protect the things that we care about. We have to choose a cause because it's all been split apart. But the underlying point is we all deserve to live an unpolluted life. We all deserve to have a better life than our parents had, and leave a better world for our children. I mean, this is basic stuff. We all deserve to drink clean water. We all deserve to eat clean fish, or whatever. And we need to take care of our environment. It's the same issue. It's corporate greed. It's governments not supporting population, the people themselves. It's people being sold the wrong bill of goods and voting for people that are not actually in their interests. I mean, it's pretty ugly out there, but it's the same issue wherever you are.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Johnny Depp is taken up, or he's not only acting, I believe he's acting as producer as well in the film. And of course, there's a lot of controversy around him these days. I was just reading something where he's a damaged brand, whatever that means. How much of that stuff entered into your decision to work with him on the film?
None of it. I mean, Johnny was already on board with me prior to this kind of stuff.
Right.
But anyway, at the end of the day, my goal on a film like this, and my goal with all of my work, is to try to, humbly do something, give back. I'm fortunate enough that I get to spend my days making art, and creating something from nothing often. And it's such a gift to have. And the way that, I view it as my responsibility is try to put work into the world that creates goodness and creates better feelings for people, and inspires them to find their own voices, and inspires them to stand up for what they believe, to know that their voice matters, to be heard. And so when I come to a project like this, all I'm looking for are like-minded people that have good intentions. And every person that came to this movie came to it. Nobody came to this movie to make money. Nobody came to this movie that's not what this was. I mean, this was a film that was there to specifically give voice to this community and these people that are still struggling to be heard, but also to bring voice to all marginalized people all around the world.
Right. So you traveled to Serbia and to Japan to shoot the film. What kind of things did you run? Did you have any resistance in Japan making this film there? And I know in Serbia, you were shooting in Belgrade, and there's this giant factory that is kind of a big part of the film. So maybe you can tell me about that as well.
Sure. So in Japan, the resistance that we found was more amongst the distributors. So before we made the film, all of the Japanese, none of the Japanese distributors were willing to commit to releasing the film. Primarily because they were concerned that a Western filmmaker might not tell the story in a way that felt accurate to them and might not be respectful and would be culturally unrecognizable.
Right.
But obviously, I'm a kind of filmmaker that cares deeply about. I'm very detail oriented filmmaker, and it's a gift to go make these things. I really enjoy it, and so every decision was made quite thoughtfully. And one of the great victories, one of the things I'm most proud of about the film is after we premiered the film at Berlin, almost every single Japanese distributor made an offer on the film, and we had a huge sort of bidding war where ultimately we got to choose who we felt was the best partner for us, because they all wanted it and they all appreciated what we had done and how we did it. In terms of the community there, we also had unbelievable, unwavering support from the victims and their families and patients, ongoing patients in Minamata. And with that, I think we have the general public who are excited to see this story. I mean, I think we treat them and the people there with great respect. In terms of any stories in Belgrade or in Serbia, I mean, it was an incredible place to shoot. I've shot 2 films in Belgrade, actually. I produced a film there a few years earlier with Ralph Fiennes called The White Crow, about Rudolf Nureyev. And so I'd spent a bit of time there and had been exposed to the incredible crew, the incredible crews that were there. And then we also shot in Montenegro, where we actually built a exact replica of this village, because
Right.
ultimately that village doesn't exist. I mean, one of the things we learned in Japan is, what's happened in the last 50 years in Japan is remarkable. I mean, every corner of Japan has been rebuilt. So it just doesn't look the same.
Right.
Montenegro is a topographical match almost for Minamata Bay. And so it just, as long as we were there at the right time of year, we were able to do quite a lot. And so we built there. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic to be in all of those parts of the world. I mean, it was amazing to be in Japan so much, and it was amazing to be in Serbia and Montenegro. It was
Right.
incredible.
Cool. Now you mentioned your crew. Your DP is a gentleman by the name of Benoit Delhomme. What kind of conversations did you have with him about how to approach shooting this thing?
Sure. Well, Benoit is a very unique artist. Aside from being incredibly gifted in what he does, he has a sensitivity that allows him to feel story and feel the room in the moment. And so as my DOP, he also was shooting. I mean, he held the camera.
Yep.
And that was important to me, because obviously this is a movie that's, we're seeing it through the lens of a photographer. My photographer needs to be holding the camera. If it wasn't going to be Benoit, it would have been me. I certainly wasn't going to have a camera operator that was 3 steps removed from us. And Benoit and I, we worked really closely together to make sure that the film felt, firstly, that it honored all of these images and all of these ideas and all of these tableaus that we needed in every scene, and it hit all of those moments, but also that it was not just a call to action, but also a warm hug, that it felt that you could feel the warmth of us and of the story and of the people in the DNA of the movie. And there's a lot of different ways that you go about doing that, but you need to be really focused on it to make sure it comes across. Beyond that, we worked very hard to create a feeling of a photographer's eye throughout, so that you really did feel that while, you weren't always literally looking through the camera of Gene Smith, you were looking through his eye. And so you could get a sense of what a photographer at that level, with somebody who had singular vision, could see and how they would see the world in color, right?
Yeah.
He may be shooting in black and white, but he's seeing the world in color, and the vibrancy of that. And so, this film is as much Benoit's as it is mine. And it's as much, I mean, Benoit is not just my brother and a great collaborator, but he's, he's really an exceptional artist. And I think what he did and what he brought to this movie is quite remarkable.
Cool. Now, one aspect that I always am keen on is the use of music in films. And I love the fact that you started out with 10 years after I'd Love to Change the World, kind of hits you right there. And then later on, they're singing Forever Young, Bob Dylan song. Of course, we're talking on Dylan's 80th birthday at the moment. So, I mean, that's kind of amazing. But in general, how do you approach integrating music into what you're making with film?
Sure. First, let me say that, Gene Smith was, on this trip, he went through, there's customs bills and all of these things. So he had brought a bunch of records with him.
Oh, really?
So we sort of knew what the catalog was to some degree,
cool.
right? Of what there was.
Yep.
Beyond that, it's a moving target, right? It's an evolving thing. Most of this movie is score. And, I was fortunate enough to have, one of the great masters in Reiichi Sakamoto do, work on the score with me. And, we worked hard and fought quite a bit to get it to a place that we were both happy with. And I think he was masterful in what he did, but it was, the music for me was in, this film is a dance. All of the way the camera works, the way the actors move, it's a dance. It's musical throughout. But in truth, the music that was created after we made the film, right? We scored it. But there was in this film, the score is very much mirroring what happened on set in those days and the rhythm that the actors and the camera found naturally. Right. And I think that if I didn't have a true master like Reiichi, I don't know that many others could have found exactly that right flow, that right mood, that right thing that he did so well.
Right. And of course, there's a line in the film, "Jazz is what we've got, improvisation," I think. So is that kind of reflect how you make your films as well?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about filmmaking. It to me is all about absolute preparation, and creating, fixing the things that you can fix, getting them right, getting them set, and creating an environment where there is space for improvisational, emotional improvisation, obviously improvisation with words, improvisation with movement, and allowing actors to be free and allowing your artists to find their way. As long as we've done our job as filmmakers, we've created an environment for that to happen, then all the happy magic can come. If you're so focused on, if you haven't done the work to create those parameters, to get everything ready, to prep your actors in a way where they really know who these humans are and what they're trying to express in these moments and in these scenes. And if the rest of your team is scattered around and not in the same way and moving in the same direction, you'll never be able to improv. You'll never be able to find that magic. And so for me, it's all about creating that environment, getting everyone moving in the same direction and prepped perfectly and as prepped as possible, so that once the camera's on, once we're shooting, we can go find it and that's what life is.
Yeah. Now, at the end of the film, there's a list of other kind of industrial pollution sites that have happened over the years, which kind of goes to show that this is not an isolated incident. One of them was the Love Canal in Buffalo, New York, which I've actually driven through once or twice, and it's quite kind of eerie to go through a place like that. What do you hope to accomplish, if anything, with this film? Just raising awareness? Is there something?
Sure. So what I would say is, for me, the primary focus of this film is to make people in the audience feel inspired, feel uplifted. I think ultimately this is an uplifting and hopeful story. And, you know, I hope that an audience walks out of a theater and feels inspired to action, whether it's, you know, to act in that, you know, this is a film that I think is, you know, I don't know what it's rated in New Zealand, but, you know, to me, this is a film that is appropriate for a 13-year-old and it's appropriate for a 90-year-old. You know, this is real life, and it does show the beauty of humanity and all of that. And it should, you know, if you're a 13-year-old, it should inspire you to go do whatever you need to do to be heard and to be a force for good. And if you're 20, it's the same thing. If you're 90, it's the same thing. And so I hope this movie inspires people. I hope this movie makes them feel good and gets them to get a little pep in their step and feel like they can make a difference. They can be a force for change, and that they're part of a larger global community. Beyond that, for me personally, I think that, you know, connecting all of these issues around the world and letting us realize that we are one world, we are one community, and that, you know, we really have to learn from our past. We can't keep letting these things happen because none of us are benefiting. You know, a bunch of people are getting rich, big corporations that are making a lot of money, and, you know, governments are supposed to work for us, but ultimately, you know, we have to tell them what to do. We have to vote. We have to engage. That's what I care about. But my aspiration is for people's hearts to feel full and full of hope and full that they can make a difference.
Cool. And so what are you working on next? What can we see next from you?
I got a bunch of cool stuff that I'm working on. I'm particularly excited about teaching again this fall at NYU. I've got 2 museum exhibitions coming up, one in Portugal and one in Athens later this fall, which I'm very excited about. I'm making these massive sculptures, and then working on a few films that are quite exciting that I promise, if you'll have me, I'll come back and talk to you.
I'm sure we can work something out. Very good. Well, thank you for talking to me today. I appreciate it. The film is in the theaters, I think, in just a couple of days here. So we're all excited about it. Yeah.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thank you so much. And I hope people get out there and see it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Right.
Or night.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.